In this video I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to change an alternator in a Hyundai Santa Fe. Now this model is a 2004. This should be applicable to a 2001 to about a 2006. This is what the new alternator looks like. Now I've already got the old one out. I've went to Advanced Auto. I've got my new alternator, and to get it out, it's not a fun job, but it's not hard, and hopefully that's what this video will kind of help explain a little bit. So I'll bring the camera over here a little bit closer so I can show you kind of a step-by-step of how I got it out, and a couple little tips I can give you to save you some time and some frustration. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, of course, jack the vehicle up, put a jack stand under it, and I like to lay the front tire kind of underneath like that, just as an added support, and put a little chunk of wood or something on one of the back wheels. So after that, you need to remove this plastic piece right here. Now it's held in place by 4 10mm screws, which look like this, and they're slightly hidden. There's one right here, 2 over there, and then there's one back here kind of in the corner. What I use to get them out, I just use some extensions like this on my ratchet and on my drill, and then I had a longer extension to get that back one. But you take those 4 10mm screws out, and then this plastic kind of bends and comes right out of the way. So now you can see, power steering pump, there's your main crank pulley, you got, oil filter, stuff like that, and the alternator is right here. So you do have access to it, but it is very tight. Now I want to bring the camera in a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you kind of an important tip on how to get this out. Alright, so you can see this kind of, I'm going to call it a cradle. That is where this bolt sits in, right here. So when you go to loosen this nut right here, you don't need to take this all the way off. You just need to make it loose. And then, as you can see, it's cut out right there, so then you can lift the alternator up and out. But the first bolt you're going to want to take off is right up here. And that bolt there is right here. That's what that one looks like. So you take that one out at the top first, and then you loosen this one right here, just loose enough, and then the alternator kind of rotates up and out of the way, and then you could pull it over here and you could rest it like on the drive shaft. So then the next thing you're going to want to do is get this oxygen sensor wire off. This is kind of hooked onto the alternator just to keep it away from the exhaust. And then I disconnected this plug, and then that leaves the main cable right there. You could barely see it at the tip of my finger. That one's the one that's the hardest to get off. Once you get your oxygen wire off, get this plug off, you kind of got it laying about right here. You could just get up in there with, I used a geared open end wrench. Use this right here to get the nut off of that main wire. That allowed it to drop down, and then I brought it out this side over here. You've got your tie rod and more stuff kind of over in the way here. You got brake line there, or ABS line. So I brought it out right through here, and that's how I was able to get the alternator out. Now it did take, I don't know, 25 minutes or so. Oh, I forgot, you also need to loosen your belt, which your tensioner is right there. You just put a 3/8 ratchet and pull down, and then that's what loosens up your belt. So that brings me to the point where I'm at now, reinstalling the alternator. So if I reinstall it the same way, I'm going to attach the main cable right here. Then I'm going to attach that plug right there. And then I'm going to set this into the cradle and then rotate upward to get that last bolt in. And then the last thing is going to be to put the belt on. So I'm going to do that next, and I'll come back and let you know if there's any tips on putting this back in. Okay, so I got the alternator back in place, which only took about 3 minutes. So you connect that main power cable, and then you connect that big fat gray connector, and then fit it into its cradle right there. As you can see, it just rotates up a little bit to line up. So all I have to do is put in that top screw right there, and then I should be able to put the belt back on. So I'll get that top screw in, tighten the lower bolt up, and then we'll put the belt on. Alright, so I got the alternator back in. Now, just a couple of tips. I put Loctite on every bolt. As you can see, my 3H ratchet is still on that tension pulley. That's where that goes, and all you do is pull down to release your tension. So I got that on. Let me get that off there. So now the next thing is to reinstall this plastic cover. Actually, the next thing, I might just turn the car over a couple little times, just bump it and then start it, and then just kind of take a look and make sure everything looks okay down here before I put that plastic cover back on. Alright, so the reason I had to change the alternator is last night on my way home, the battery light and the parking brake light came on the dash. I was about 40 minutes from home, and by the time I got home, my turn signals were getting a little slow, the headlights were getting a little dim, and I know that the battery is only about a year old. So what I did was, you can take a voltmeter with the car running and test the charge on your battery. Now, a good alternator, you should be at least 13.4 volts with the car running. I was at 11.6. So I kind of confirmed the alternator was going bad. So now that I've got the alternator installed, I'm going to jump inside. I'm just going to crank it a couple of times just to make sure, give a full rotation on the belt. And then we're going to check the charge on the battery. So we should be at least 13.4 volts if the alternator is doing its job. We're at 13.6. Well, it's definitely working. Like I said, last night I was at 11.6 when I finally pulled in the driveway. Now there's two reasons you may get your battery light on, and usually the parking brake will come on at the same time. One, let's say it's pouring down rain and you have a lot of water splashing up on your serpentine belt. Because the alternator is so low, the belt could actually start to slip, therefore giving an error code on your dash. Or you have a very worn out serpentine belt and it's slipping. So as long as you know you have a good serpentine belt, then you can kind of narrow it down to the alternator. So now that I know alternator's good, I've got the belt on there, I'm going to go ahead and replace that plastic guard. Alright, so I have that plastic guard back in place, and all I got left to do is put the wheel back on, and that's about it. Now this entire job took me about an hour and a half. That's not including running to advanced auto. That was about 15 minutes. But Not a fun job, but something you can do. Once again, just going over some tips. Loctite everything. Loosen that lower kind of carrier bolt and take out the top bolt to rotate the alternator out. And then take off your that big gray plug, and then you're going to take off your black main wire, and then it should kind of wiggle its way out through this front side. And then just do a reversal process. Like I said, if you're looking at it, you may think it's a pretty daunting task. It's not that bad. Just give yourself an hour and a half, a little bit of patience, and you can get it done. Hope the video helps. Thanks for watching.